Honey, don't walk out, I'm too drunk to follow. You know you won't feel this way tomorrow. Well, I'm a little rough around the edges and inside a little hollow. And I'm faced with something sometimes that are so hard to swallow. Hey, but I was born a rebel down in Beauty on a Tuesday morning. Of one foot in the grave, one foot's on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. She picked me up in the morning and she paid all my tickets there, screamed in the car and let me out in the thicket. Well, I never would have dreamed that her heart was so wicked. I keep coming back, 'cause it's so hard to kick it. Hey, 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 and I was born a rebel down in Dixie on a Sunday morning. One foot in the grave, one foot's on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. Even before my father's father, well, they called us all rebels. They burned out our crops and they leveled our town. Well, I still feel the eyes of those red-coated devils, and I'm walking around tonight through the concrete and metal. Hey, 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 'cause I was born a rebel up in Beauty on a Tuesday morning. I've one foot in the grave, I've one foot on the pedal. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. Hey, 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 I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel. I was born a rebel.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good day, depending where you are watching us from in the world. I'm not going to do any lengthy introductions. I will hand you straight over to Silvano very quickly and let him bring to you what he has for you today.
Hello, Alex. Hello, everybody. And yes, although Ian is not here to ask me a question today, so I will just talk about myself, about the subject we chose last time. And then, of course, I will open the floor to your questions. So I'll talk about for about 20 minutes or something. And the subject today is CERN technology transfer. That means, what does CERN do for you? I mean, we've been talking in the past couple of sessions about, from conspiracy theories to what the reality of CERN is, what the real science that we do there, trying to give you a quick panorama, a quick, cover a bit what we do, even though it's really hard to talk just with my hands and my voice about such abstract subjects as particle physics, quantum mechanics, etc. So this time we'll keep our feet on the ground, and we will talk about how our life has changed thanks to CERN. So there is always this kind of argument in the air that always comes every time I have presented CERN in conferences, in talks, and that is, CERN is very expensive. The budget is about $1.2 billion a year. So what are we putting all this money? Because it's taxpayer money, of course. CERN is an intergovernmental organization founded, as I said last time, by 21 member states, plus a whole bunch of others. There's about, probably 100 governments that chip into CERN, because although it is owned, let's say, by 21 member states, which are most of Europe, that's why it's the European Organization for Particle Physics. So, of course, most of the member states are European states. But there are everyone else, basically, in the world, except for some African states. All the other governments come to do their research. They send a university. Wherever there is a particle physics faculty around the world, they will send their professors, their students, to do the research at CERN. And like I said last time, all this research is completely open source. It's all no secrets. Everything is completely open to everybody. So whatever gets found at CERN has to be divulgated through scientific papers everywhere throughout the world. Now, this $1.2 billion that we need per year in order to build our machines, to maintain them, to run them, seems to be quite a lot of money. And if you think about it, that is the budget of some huge, big polyclinic, polytechnic university. If you think about a very big hospital with all the faculties, several buildings, has a budget of about $1 billion. So we're around those lines. And you say, oh yes, but hospitals save lives. So it's money well spent because they're saving lives, whereas you guys are just looking at the sky and looking at the Big Bang and saying, what happened during the Big Bang and how come we, the planets and the solar systems, the stars came to live today, and why do we live? How do we come to exist today? This is what CERN's research is. So they say, but do we really need to know that? We know we're here, and why do we need to know how we came from the Big Bang 13 billion years ago? Well, my argument there has always been, yes, it's true that CERN may, instead of funding CERN, you may find yet another hospital. But hospitals save lives. But they save lives because of CERN. And why? What's the connection between hospitals and CERN? Well, I don't know if you ever had a CT scan or an MRI in your life, but, where was CT scan invented? Who invented it? The CT scan is a direct consequence of our particle detectors. George Charpak, who had the Nobel Prize, back in the 70s, he thought that as particle detectors use matrices of cables to detect the passage of particles, well, you can use the same technology to look inside our bodies by using a machine called a CT scan. And later, an MRI, the magnetic resonance machine, is a more perfected version of it, or a rather different approach, but it still uses the same technology. So what happens is that in the course of their research, CERN scientists actually realize that some things that they have invented in order to be able to detect particles, to accelerate particles, to do the job that CERN does. That kind of technology, which is usually breakthrough technology, the kind of technology we need at CERN, is always a technology that does not exist. To design a new particle accelerator like the Large Hadron Collider, this thing has been in the design on the workbenches of engineers and physicists for over 20 years. I remember that we first started talking about it, it was 85 or 86, and it only was completed in 2010. So that is like 30 30 years of research and planning to be able to do this. So, but when you plan something that needs a huge computing power, for instance, and you plan it 30 years before, how do you know what computing is going to be in 30 years' time? So you have to do a lot of assumptions, or you have to invent the technology that doesn't exist yet. One example is cryogenics. We have been working, for a long time to perfect cryogenics. We did not invent cryogenics, but we perfected it and we made it happen. We made the technology usable together with a lot of universities that collaborated with CERN. But we made this technology usable. What is cryogenics? Is the fact that there is some physical property of certain conductors that when cooled down at a temperature close to the absolute zero, they become perfect conductor with no resistance. And therefore, with a wire that could be like the one you use for the Christmas tree, you can actually power, something like a magnet at CERN, which absorbs 200 amperes, which means it's a huge absorption of electricity. You can, for instance, power, an industrial machine by using a simple cable that you use for the Christmas light, if you were using cryogenic on it. And this is because cables can carry like 1,000 times or more the power of electricity, the amperes, we call them technically, than they would in a normal temperature. So this is a big parenthesis about cryogenics. Just to say, cryogenics didn't exist 30 years ago, or did exist, but it was really at a very experimental level. So we had to perfect it and make it usable. Back to talking about diagnostics machines. So these machines, like the MRI and the CT scan, they were basically invented. They came as a direct consequence of the work that we were doing on detectors. Another side of medicine is therapeutics, how to cure certain cancers. Certain cancers can be cured with nuclear medicine. Now, nuclear medicine is a big, wide argument, but one in particular, it came straight from CERN, and that is the particle accelerator technology. When you accelerate particles, you can then collimate them. That means you make them into like a laser beam, very, very tight beam, and you focus it into the brain of someone to destroy a cancer. Now, these particles have the properties, like protons, for instance, to release their energy. That means, say, to explode inside your head, but at the right point. So they don't even make a hole in your skin. They just go through the skin and just leave it completely unharmed. They can go through any tissues in your body and leave them unharmed, and just release the charge. So when they reach the cancer, this means the cancer is exploded from within. And this can cure brain cancer. We use it a lot. We have these machines in many hospitals now around the world that were completely designed at CERN by a team that was led by Ugo Amaldi, who was the son of the first director general of CERN, a physicist who, when he retired, he concentrated all his life into his effort into designing therapeutics machine. So, talking about $1 billion put into an hospital to save lives, $1 billion put into CERN to save lives all around the world, because all the hospitals around the world use these machines. And CERN keeps perfecting this. If you go on CERN technology transfer page, if you just type CERN technology transfer or CERN hadron therapy, it's the therapy through protons, you will then see on the web a whole list of applications and the latest trends in it, how they're constantly perfecting it, making it more and more efficient, and making it more and more, more, available to everybody, to every hospital, not the big ones, but put this everywhere. Like MRI is basically everywhere today. Tomorrow we want to have hadron therapy everywhere, and being able to attack cancers from inside. Now, while I'm talking, I'm sorry, sometimes it looks like because I'm looking at your comments. So I'm looking at your comments at the same time. And I would just like to say quickly, I see Julie Thompson. Say hi, Julie. Who's this man? Yes, I haven't been introduced by Ian today, but I am a communicator of CERN, a former communicator. I'm now retired. So I'll open a little parenthesis about me. I'm a computer scientist. I have been working with physicists all my life. And for the last 10 years of my life, I have been working on communication of physics. That means making films. I created the YouTube site for CERN. I posted all the first videos. If you look a few years ago, I retired in 2012. So if you look before then, you will find all my films that I did for CERN. You'll find news about the building of the LHC while we were building it, etc. So I am, even today, I have stayed 10 years after retiring, I am still communicating what we do at CERN and what we don't do, including some of the things that conspiracy theorists want us to do. Anyway, so back to technology transfer. One thing that another comment I saw about the World Wide Web. Yes, I worked on the early web, or rather, I was next door to the office, to Tim Berners-Lee's office. Tim was a fellow at the time at CERN, and he had this idea in the beginning of the 90s, since about 89. But he came to present a proposal in 91. And we were friends because we were also working on theater. I used to organize music festivals. Guitar. Someone also commented about my guitars. Yeah, I'm also a musician. Not the same style as Ian, though. I mean, I'm a little bit harder. I play metal and that kind of stuff. And and amongst other things, you probably, if you look me up, Silvano De Gennaro, you'll find that I'm the one who posted the so-called first picture on the web. Is not quite true. The press has omitted a lot of things, as usually do. I posted the first picture of a band. That band that you say when you say first picture on the web, and you see the CERNets. Well, one of them is my wife, Michelle, and so it was the band that we made at CERN, CERNets. And CERNets sing songs of physics that I used to write. It's just for fun, It's part of the fun, the funny things we do at CERN. We do rock festivals, for instance, every July. In July, we run these rock festivals, and I started the trend in 89, I think. And they're still doing it. They still do rock festivals. At the time, the CERNets was the big band. If you go on cernets.com, you'll find all the shows at CERN, on a CERN stage, and they sing about physics. They sing about protons and love and stuff like that. You'll have a fun. You'll have a laugh. I wrote a song called Surfing on the Web when the web was only known to CERN people. So when we went to play outside, a few times we played outside in Geneva, I said, what is this web? And they didn't understand what we were singing about when it said surfing on the web, blah, blah. Anyway, back to our subject, the web. Yes, the web is, we wouldn't be doing this today if Tim had not invented the web. You may say, oh yeah, but Tim could have invented the web anywhere else if he was working for a university. Perhaps, yes, of course, it would have come sooner or later. But the reason why he had this idea at CERN, is that there was a need for it. See, at the time, I was a computer scientist. I worked on operating systems, and I was working on the DEC computer center, the VAX computer center, as a system programmer, system administrator, and CERN had something like 8 different manufacturers in the computer room. IBM, Siemens, Control Data, CDC, there was VAX, there was the Unix world with all of the workstations. And the point is that we said, we need to communicate. At the time, if you took a Word file, a document from a Mac, and you wanted to read it on a PC, you had to go through some converters because you could not have even pictures, even GIF files or something, they would, they would not talk to each other. All this different manufacturers, even though you could bridge their networks because they each one had a proprietary network, you could bridge them more or less via internet, etc. But you could still not easily access a file and understand it. Your computer would not understand. If it was a PC, would not understand a thing written by a Mac. So basically, the idea was, instead of converting these pictures and text files from a machine into the other, why don't we just create this simple thing called a browser, where you can actually put anything, and this browser will do the job of understanding any file that is given to him, and so that you can access it, read it. And so that was the genius of Tim's genius, to be able to propose something like this, which was not just a closed box where you had all your data on your computer. No, it was actually streaming it on the network via a protocol that he invented, HTTP. And so when you refer to the web is basically that. Is HTTP is a protocol plus a browser and a server somewhere. And any computers could potentially be a server, in fact. And that was also the other genius idea behind the web. So yes, the web exists. I wouldn't say because of CERN. The web exists because of Tim. However, Tim used to be at CERN at that time. So yeah, that's the second big chapter of technology transfer of CERN. The second big present the CERN has made to mankind, a tool that can be used to communicate, beyond languages, beyond countries, in a really global communication fashion. And and then I must say that alone is worth all the billions you can put into CERN. The other reason why it wouldn't come from a private company is that private companies tend to copyright everything. I'll tell you something. Well, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but anyway, it's not a secret. But there were some large computer manufacturers. Bill Gates, Microsoft. They tried to have Tim to hire him as vice president when this thing came out, and Tim refused. And the reason why he refused, you can just imagine the salary there. And instead, no, he went to MIT. Why did he go to MIT? Because he wanted this to be for the world. I don't know if you remember the Olympic Games. When was that? 2014, or so, the ones in London. And you look at the celebration of the opening celebration, and there is Tim Berners-Lee in the middle of the stadium in a box there, sending a message that appeared everywhere. This is for everyone, and this is the point. This is for everyone. It's not for somebody to become rich about it, to sell it, to get a patent on it. No, the web has to be free for everybody. I also saw, just scrolling, a message about WW3, the worldwide, basically the World Wide Web Foundation, and so organization. No, CERN is not part. However, not officially. However, there are many people in CERN who have worked with Tim and who are part of it. Tim created this organization, the W3C. Because he wanted to protect the web from people trying to privatize it. Because as long as the web and the protocol, HTTP, can stay free, can stay open source, open everything, then it can belong to the world, can belong to everyone, and can help development around the world, can help developing countries to access the information, can bridge the digital divide. That's the important thing. Can help developing countries as well as developed nations to talk at the same level. And this is one of his priorities, to bring, mobile network, bring it on every phone. I was in Bangalore in 2006, sent by Tim, to discuss the how to use stupid phones. Today we have the smartphones, but at the time we had the Nokia style phones, and even those were used in Kenya by fishermen and by farmers to track their cows or to know how to sell their fish. And they did it by using SMSs. It was a web driven by SMS because they had no internet access in the middle of the sea at the time. And the very first software to do payments with the telephone was born in Kenya and in the University of Nairobi. And because of the involvement of W3C and the project of the mobile network. But this is the consequence. This is, if you want, W3C, the World Wide Web, what it became after being invented in 1994-5, something like this. Team moved out of CERN, moved to MIT, and what it became the network after its invention at CERN. So it's let's say that CERN's job is not to do inventions. CERN's job is to look into the Big Bang, into understanding particle physics, into explaining what we see out there in the universe and we don't understand. Some concepts that I grazed last time, like dark matter and antimatter, and this we will speak about in the future. I'll try to be more specific and try to be more clearer and be more detailed into all these concepts of physics. But basically, CERN idea is CERN's mission is to investigate the origins of the universe. But in the course of our research, because we have to work always on breakthrough technology, we come across inventions that then are given to the world. CERN doesn't make any money on this. There are some machinery that go into the industrial level. Some machines that have become then usable by industrial applications. On those, they take a patent, but certainly not on things that are of global interest, like medical or the web, etc. So I believe that, I'm seeing a lot of comments there. I can't talk at the same time and read. So I will, meanwhile, I'll ask Alex to select some comments that I can reply to. And the last, I believe I have, there was a last thing that I wanted to add. Another thing, important thing that CERN has invented is grids. You know what a grid is? The grid is not the electric grid, the computing grid. The computing grid is what you call a cloud today. The Google Cloud, the Apple Cloud. A lot of computers connected together, computers and data storage connected together. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of CPUs of computers in order to process your search. When you search something on Google, you start a chain reaction into thousands of computers who will then pick up your request and come back with an answer. You wonder why it comes so fast, Google searches. That's because there are hundreds of thousands, probably millions today, of computers that are there to listen to your request. So this computing power, this computing cloud, the original idea came from CERN because we had to process so many events. An event is a particle collision. Each event was like 2 megabytes of data in the Large Hadron Collider. And they happen 40 million times a second. So how can you process so much data? And so we created a whole computing structure that I could probably talk about it if you want me to some other time, how all this data is filtered by hardware very close to, some filters are very close to the hardware that only select those particle collisions that can be of interest to physicists and discard the rest. And then after 2-3 levels of filtering, we get into the grid being the cloud at CERN. So the grid is something that CERN developed together with universities. As usual, we don't do things alone. We are universities. CERN is where all physics and technology universities of the whole world converge, is the public forum for all this. And on this, I think I can stop talking and see if Alex has selected some comments.
Yep. Okay. We've got a few on the computing side and World Wide Web side, but more general on computing. Why do you think Windows, a developer operating system, became the OS of choice rather than Linux, which is more user-friendly, potentially safer?
Choice by whom? Sorry.
In general, because you don't, I imagine, because you don't see many Linux computers out there, do you really? You don't buy Linux computers.
Linux is a remaking. I mean, you're talking about Unix. The basic operating system that Linux is based on is Unix, and it's a very nerdy thing. You have to learn the C shell scripts. You have to learn how to type. It's started mostly as a typing, as a line-based computing interface, and it still is. Today, if you want to do really advanced things in Linux, you don't use the click and the click and drag and the WYSIWYG interface. You go into the system. Myself, when I want to do anything interesting on my Mac, I go into the terminal and I use C shell or another bash or something. I mean, and I type Linux commands. But you have to be a computer scientist, or at least a pretty good understanding of coding and computing in order to be able to do that. My mother, who passed away a few years ago, but I would have never asked her when she was 60 or 70 to get into the C shell or something. Of course, she learned how to use email and something, but that's something that you can do in a more advanced system. So that's why Windows and before that Mac, Mac OS X became really the global trend. One thing about Windows is that Windows comes at a cost, of course. It's Microsoft. Microsoft business is software. Microsoft don't make computers, or at least they didn't in the beginning. They have tried this stuff, but never really worked apart from the gaming console, the Xbox. But Microsoft came, it was a software seller. And we at CERN, I'm talking about Tim and everyone else that was working in the IT department at CERN, including myself. We were all for open software. We were all pleading for the software to be free. We believe that software should all be free, written by universities. And today you see that a lot in the apps, for instance, and a lot of apps are free, and they are making their or programs, that you download on computers, and because they make the marketing of publicity. But let's say that Microsoft was charging money, and once upon a time, I started back in the year 2000 or something, an NGO called Informaticiens Sans Frontières, or Software Without Borders. I was the president of that. We were sending computers, all the recycled computers from CERN. There were PCs mostly. We sent them to Africa. But the problem is that we send them and they were sent with Windows. Now what happens is the next version of Windows comes and they have to pay for it. And they can't afford it because that's like 2 months of salary for them to pay a version of Windows. So we started making a Linux distro that was called Live, Linux integrated interface for. And the idea with Live is that it was really easy to use. You didn't have to go into the complex side of Linux, but even somebody who could even read and write, they could start using it by learning how to read and write first, and then go on step 2, that is, go on email. Once you can read and write, you can go on email, and then go on the web, etc. So, and this we started doing back then. Then the project was abandoned because Ubuntu came around, and they did exactly that. So they took over. Sorry, that was a bit long, but it was my field. See, computer science is what I am. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fine. I'm just keeping an eye on the other questions coming in. This is, I think, based back to, because when I see the questions are out of sequence now is what you've been talking about, so I'm trying to put them back into some level of context. But when you were talking about the web and the whole point was that it should be free for everyone. Someone's question, but to access it at all, we need to pay an ISP. So how does that come in with the intent and the inclination to make it free for everyone?
Oh, yeah. Well, ISPs, of course. Well, okay. Behind the computer, there is a cable. This cable is that connected somewhere, right? And we know it ends up in an ISP at some stage. And so there must be somebody who looks after the actual cables that connect computers together, or the Wi-Fi. Well, Wi-Fi for GSM, the telephones. This is today. It's all the same network. Telephone, computers. It's all the same. But basically, the people behind that, they are not missioners. They don't live off government funds. They profit companies, and so of course they make money out of that. Now there was a thing. I actually met Kofi Annan together with Tim Berners-Lee during a World Summit on Information Society many years ago. It was probably 2004, I think. Yes, and at the time. We were discussing this, and Kofi was saying that the internet access to the web should be a human right, and that governments should give this for free. This was all good at the time, and we all believed in that, but it's never come to fruition. Unfortunately, business always takes over all the good ideas and all the good wishes that people have. But who knows? Maybe one day we'll have somebody who will carry that torch and give us free internet everywhere.
Okay. I think you've answered this one a couple of times, but we don't get the same people in each week. So I'll ask again, who's funding CERN? I think you pretty much said we are.
Yeah, yes, if you're in the UK, you are. It's 21 member states. Don't let me tell all the names. You just go and type CERN member states, and you go to the member states page of CERN where you see who they are. It's most of Europe, except 2 or 3 or something that, don't know, they're not part of CERN. Is it Sweden or Norway? Norway, probably. Anyway, you will see that most of Europe is. But the whole world, what happens is, well, there are, like I said, 21 member states. These are the people who sit in the council. So this is the govern CERN. They sit around and they decide what to do, what research to do, whether we want to start a new collider, what to do with the computers. So they are the governing council of CERN. Now, CERN's purpose is to run the accelerator. Now, let me make a little difference here. There's an accelerator, right? The Large Hadron Collider that accelerates these particles and crash. They collide in 4 points around this ring, 40 million times a second. Now, these 4 points are gigantic cameras called detectors, made with multi-layered electronics that can detect and trace where the particle pass. So they make a sort of 3D X-ray of what the particles that were generated in the collision of the two protons. So these detectors are not CERN. These detectors are funded by a collaboration of something like 250 institutes all around the world. There are more than 150 nations that put money into CERN because they are, United States, Brazil, I don't know, just Pakistan, India, China. I mean, I'm just picking Japan, everybody around the world. The only one, it's easier to say who is not part of CERN. And, ironically, Mauritius, where I live, it's a tiny little island, only 40 kilometers diameter in the middle of the Indian Ocean, where Mauritius is not part of CERN, because there are only 10 people in the physics department. So you cannot even have enough people to send a delegation to CERN. So we're too small. But any nation that is big enough, and which is not a oil-based country, because it's not their interest to develop nuclear, whatever, they would just sell the oil. That's the point. But I think that Saudi Arabia has a delegation now. Morocco has a delegation. Tunisia, probably, yes. I mean, it's been 10 years, so I don't ask me who lately joined CERN, but that's the whole world was putting money into it.
Okay. Do you think there are more subatomic particles to be discovered, or are we reaching the limit of what we can find?
Well, this is a huge question. This is, all the theorists in the world are asking the same question. What is behind the door? Every time we open a new door, we find something, we discover a whole new world that we didn't think about. So the more you learn, the less you know. And this is something that was very classical phrase that Einstein was the first one to actually. There is a certain modesty that you need to be able to be a physicist. Never pretend that you know everything. Absolutely never. You will never know everything. There will always be new discoveries. So, for instance, just this year, some of the experiments, it was at HCB, I believe, and they discovered some very weird nuclei. With particles, protons actually, and neutrons. Well, there were four quarks, and there is another one that could have 5 quarks according to the theory. Now, let me not go into the quarks and how many quarks there should be, etc. But basically, we know all protons and neutrons are made of 3 quarks, 2 ups and 1 down, or 2 down and 1 up. The quarks are a bit the fundamental bricks of particles, of nature. There's nothing smaller than a quark. So quarks are what forms protons and neutrons, and then protons and neutrons form the nucleus of the atom. So now they found that all of a sudden there are some particles that have 4 quarks, not 3, and this starts a whole new way of thinking of physics. So opens a door to another unknown, because they believe there could be pentaquarks as well. So 5 quarks machine, and this all comes within what they call the standard model. I haven't spoken about the standard model yet, but it's a mathematical theory that describes everything that exists in the universe. So the standard model is what is based to, let's say, discover new particles, because the new particles must come from as a deduction from the formula of the standard model. If you Google standard model formula, you will see something that fills a whole page, and that is the key to the whole universe. But we haven't explored it all completely. And thanks to our particle detectors, we may one day, hopefully sooner rather than later, know a whole lot of things that are beasts out there, particles that we don't know about. Now Alex is gone, but let me take some. Okay, here is a controversial one. Shasta Bizet, CERN has the ability to disrupt the current reality. When they cross the line, it's too late. Okay, well, I don't know what you refer to, but of course, this sounds like another conspiracy theory. CERN doesn't do anything that universities don't do. I mean, we do the same research everywhere. Research in physics is a bit like research in medicine. I mean, look at genetics, at cloning, etc. You know that today, with genetics, you can create something that, a monster. You can create a man that is 10 meters tall. You can create somebody with 4 hands. And, you can, with gene editing today, you can do anything. So there is, let's say, an ethical regulation so that people don't do things that are too unnatural. Now, at CERN, what we're doing is we're just colliding things, and nothing different from what Edison was doing when he was experimenting with electricity. When electricity was invented, people say, "Oh, this is a devilish thing. Electricity, people can die by touching 2 wires, and you are immediately dead." Yeah, so it was devilish. It was a killer. And people thought that everybody on Earth would die electrocuted, right? Okay, so what would we be today without electricity? Because we mastered it, and we knew how to use it in a way that people don't die electrocuted, unless you're an idiot.
Okay. How has CERN been involved with the development of AI going back 50 years? Alice, etc.
Okay, 50 years ago, when I first reached CERN, joined CERN, I was a student. I was 25. And, well, it wasn't 50, but 45. I'm 70 now. So anyway, back then was 76, 77. There was a program called ELIZA. And ELIZA was a line command because everything was line command. So you type, "Hi, ELIZA, how are you?" And ELIZA replied, "Hello, I hope you are well. Yes, I am doing very fine." And so it says, "Okay, today I'd like to know, I'd like to know your opinion on, I don't know, Vietnam at the time, hot topic." And they say, "Oh yes, why are you asking me about my opinion on Vietnam?" What ELIZA was a way of picking up your question and turning it around and then replying it by using what you call predicate logic. So he didn't really understand. It was just rephrasing and asking you a question to turn around your question. So we've come a long way today. Anybody who's used ChatGPT today can tell, wow, I mean, this thing really thinks, and it's astonishing. And of course, I'm the first one to be impressed. We have not done a lot of AI at CERN. We have done virtual reality. I have personally done the virtual prototyping of the Large Hadron Collider during the 90s, most of the 90s, during the design phase. But we haven't done much AI. But today, there is machine learning. There is a group based on AI today that is trying to use artificial intelligence for machine learning, in particular robotics. There is robotics because you see, certain environments where the detectors are, where the Large Hadron Collider is, they are hostile environments, hostile to humans, because there is an accumulated radiation, way less than nuclear power plants, but still there is what you call synchrotron radiation. When you accelerate a bunch of protons or other particles and you send them in a round, spinning around, every time you kick them to turn them around this circle, they will release a little bit of radiation. It's called the synchrotron radiation. So the walls of CERN becomes radioactive. The machine logically becomes radioactive. But this radioactivity decays after 7 days. So when you want to access it, you've got to switch it off, then wait 7 days for the radioactivity to go away, and then you can go in. Of course, trying wearing film badge, which is something that measures the radioactivity you are taking, because there is still some residual radioactivity. So basically, if we could save the 7 days and be able to intervene right away by sending robots that are radiation resistant, then we would save a lot of downtime in the accelerator. So this is why there is a lot of research in AI, in particular machine learning and robotics, so that and they're already using robots, but they are not yet as perfected as they could be.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up on that one? You're talking about using sort of robotics to fix the machinery. Why do you need a step beyond somebody controlling that robot to having that as an AI controlled? What is the Is it a nature of problem solving, or
no? It's because they will react much faster in situations. Yeah, okay. Today they use radio controlled, let's say, robots, but a robot could actually live permanently there. I actually designed a project myself, made of micro robots that were walking little 5 centimeters tall. That we go inside the detector to maintain the detector, because to open this detector takes another 20 days or something, open it and reclose it again. It's a very long procedure to open them, so you can maintain it inside. So, it opens like an onion, one of them. The other one, well, depends. Four different detectors. They have different ways of opening. But if you can not open them, but be able to send somebody in there, send a robot on a rail. So if you could create collaborative micro robot, one that can be a cameraman, another one that can do the weldings, another one can replace circuits. So they could actually work pretty much independently and keep maintaining the thing without even human intervention. Another large research group I should mention is about detector events displays analysis. You've probably seen that when particles collide, they make a shower of all different colorful particles because the protons disintegrate in pure energy and those recrystallize in a lot of different particles. That's what happened at the Big Bang. Now, all these events, like I said, there are like 40 million a second that are produced by the detectors, but probably 1-2 a second are worth analyzing. But it's still too much for men. When analyzing 2 events a second, how can a man do that? This is like looking at MRIs. A doctor takes some time to understand an MRI. You wouldn't be able to look at 2 MRIs per second. So you need a whole bunch of people, there are thousands of people, or else you need AI. So they're looking at AI. How can that help analyze particle collision events much faster than humans can?
What do you think the year 2030 will look like? I know it's general, but I guess it's based on the fact that you're dealing with moving forward in the future and the cutting-edge technology, etc.
Oh, you mean the next century?
They've said 2030 next, so I guess they're saying
2030
will be in 10 years' time, I guess.
Oh yeah, well, no, 2030 is pretty close. Well, there's certainly, I'm not a futurologist, of course, but I know enough technology to tell you that certainly we will move forward. Hopefully, I mean, if we survive until then, if the weather hasn't completely destroyed our life support and our food security. Technology will certainly make a lot of advances. Now we're not very far. We're 7 years away. There's a lot of advances really by the month. I wouldn't say by the year, but by the month in things like AI. Robotics is more like by the year. As for computer technology, we are stuck. As you know, computers haven't evolved much in CPU power, etc., for the last 10 years, probably. I mean, they become slicker and smarter, and they have lots of little gadgets. But the basic computing power has not become 10 times powerful in the last 10 years. Memories have certainly increased a lot, particularly becoming cheaper and bigger, faster, because now today you can afford SSD memories for much cheaper and in much bigger sizes. But the real big revolution in computing will come from quantum computing. And that's also something that has been extensively looked into CERN. CERN collaborates in that too with companies because that directly impacts them. Having very fast computers is the first step in order to be able to analyze the quantity of collision events that we are seeing. So that would be great. And then there's a lot of other things like biology. I cannot express myself on everything, but hopefully we are doing a lot of advances, as you know, in cancer, in biology, in pharmaceuticals. I wouldn't say so much, but there are all these new alternative therapies. I hope that we will make giant steps in the fight against cancer by using more and more sophisticated radio particle accelerators. Like I said, that also stem from CERN.
Okay. Is it easy to become a hacker? Asking for a friend.
To become a hacker? Well, I mean, I've had my share of fighting hackers back at the time when the first hackers appeared, and hackers were trying to hack CERN, and they called us nuclear killers. That's because, again, CERN name was European Center for Nuclear Research. Now, what we do is not at all nuclear. I mean, we don't do nuclear power plants, we don't do nuclear bombs, nothing at all like that. So I wouldn't call us nuclear killers. We much beyond the level of nucleus. The nucleus is huge compared to what we are looking at. the nucleus big like the whole solar system compared to the particles that we are looking. So if a proton is as small as my nail, then the nucleus of the atom is big like the solar system, in scale. So what we're looking at really is my nail, so the particles and what's inside these particles, the quarks, and where the energy transforms to matter and matter to energy. So let's say that hackers instead believed that we were making bombs. So so they attacked us. And we were very exposed back then, because we're talking about the 90s, the same time that the web started. We were very exposed because we had to be open to all these universities to be able to get into CERN, bring the data in and out, through the network. So we at the time, of course, but I don't know what is the connection with CERN and hacking. Today, some hackers told me CERN is the hackers driving school. And that's because we were so open, and we weren't NASA, we never had secrets. And that's the reason why we didn't have much security, because everything we did for mankind. And therefore, we were open to anybody to come in. And like I said last time, anybody at CERN, if you get in, if you're a student, you're any collaborator, you can just walk in every lab, and it's all free. It's all open for you, and ask questions to everyone you want. The only restrictions are on places that are dangerous, like the helium. If you enter a helium room, or if there is a helium leak in a room, you will freeze on the spot, because helium is frozen at minus 271 degrees. If you breathe it in, then your lungs will freeze and you die instantly. So we have to protect people from potentially dangerous places. That's why some labs are locked, but it's not because they have secret. If you just take a course on what to do in case of a helium leak, then you can enter. Okay. It's just an example.
Yeah. I guess a part of that, because you were talking originally about the worldwide, the web. I'm not going to bother to go World Wide Web every time I say it, the internet. And you're saying it basically born out of necessity, and a lot of the things you're saying are the advantages and the move forwards of CERN has been born out of necessity, what you've needed to do the job you're trying to do, and then looked at the applications beyond that. Is there not, I guess it's going to be answered with you talking about being open, but is there not a security risk in communicating everything that you're trying to move forward on the open net?
I'm sorry, if there's a...
if you're using the internet as one big cloud to move stuff from individual computers in the early days, when you're saying from Mac to PC, is that not a security danger? Or
no, because
everything is open every way?
Back at the time, all our users were, bona fides, they say. That means that we could trust everybody. Everybody was there and was exchanging data just to have to communicate science between scientists, etc. We had no secrets, so we didn't never think we would be at risk of hackers' attacks. We were in a bank where you want to hack in order to steal money. We were in a NASA, or we were in the US Army, where you want to hack in order to get weapons, secret weapons, or anything like that. Or a company where you want to hack in order to steal industrial secrets, or new design of new cellular phones, or whatever. No, we were just a place where people sit around and talk about the structure of the universe, the structure of matter. We were like, a theoretical physics place, and where we did experiments as well, and where everything was public. So the fact that we had the internet, and I've been internet manager for quite a while at CERN, we used to welcome people to get in and discuss things with us. So ask questions. And today we're still open. Today you can still find Ask an Expert somewhere on the website of CERN, and you can have any physicist at CERN replying to your questions if you want. So the point is, because we were so open, we just were open to stimulate the discussion in scientifically, of course, mostly, but also communicating with a larger audience. And the fact that we were hacked was kind of a surprise, because why would they hack us? Like I said, CERN, let me say something else that actually struck me quite a lot when I first arrived at CERN in the 70s. It was during I arrived there in 76. And there was of course the Cold War. There was the Iron Curtain, the Russians and the Americans. Well, we are in a sort of similar situation today. I hope not as bad as it was. But there were Russian scientists at CERN and there were American scientists, and they were working together. And the Russian scientist was followed by a KGB guy that was lying behind him, saying, to check that he would not share things with the Americans. And so these guys were trying to elude the surveillance of the KGB guy, wait for the guy when he went to the toilet so he could go and talk to the American and tell him just his way of seeing things, exchange a couple of formulas. And it was not secret formulas. No, it was formulas that were in the open. Everybody knew. It was just a matter of them to talk, because that way they could stimulate the discussion, the international discussion. And vice versa, there was a moment when we had to get this Cray machine. The Cray computer was the most powerful supercomputer, and it was American. So the Americans say, okay, you can have it, but on one condition. Here is a machine, a sort of, calculator with a card that changes the password every second. So you only the non-Russian or people from, at the time, Poland, whatever, came from the Eastern Bloc. All these people could not access it because they could not access the Cray. They were afraid that the Russians would use the American supercomputer to, do missile calculations or develop nuclear weapons. We knew it wasn't for that. We were just doing particle physics and understanding nature. That's what we're doing. And the Americans used to pass their computer to the Russian guy when they went to sleep. Say, okay, you continue the research. Here's the access thing. And, the CIA never knew about that. But that's what was happening at CERN. We were fighting to bypass these political blocks, these political compartments and stupid frontier, restriction that there were at the time.
That's interesting. 'Cause I know you're out of it now, but if at the height of the Cold War, they were communicating and working together, the scientists from both sides, what's led CERN in this current climate to take sides and revoke the observer status of the Russian Federation at the moment?
Well, that's a problem. They're under pressure. Of course, who is CERN? There is a director general who is a scientist. But the director general is a director. He's not the one who takes the decisions. Who takes the decision is the council. The council are the ministries of science of all the 21 member states. So these are politicians. And there's nothing you can do when it's a matter of, if the whole Europe now is taking a step against the Ukraine situation, against Russia. So CERN must respect that, because all the companies in all these countries are forced to respect that. And CERN is led by the governments of all these people, not on the science so much. The science, we have some freedom, but whatever concerns, yes, political affiliations, etc., that's the council that decides.
So really, you are still under the control of the governments of those 23, I think it says on the website, for 23 member
states. The money
states.
Comes, and exactly, the money comes from the government, so the government still have control.
Okay. Again, I think the problem is with these streams, people come in and out, and they come in partway through and whatever.
Yeah.
But I've got what is CERN's agenda, which I know you've covered at some level.
Their agenda is now, the scientific agenda, of course, that's the only agenda they have.
Yeah.
The scientific agenda is to continue using the Large Hadron Collider to discover new particles, open new windows into the unknown, and in particular, as I discovered last time, there are two big secrets that are, let's say, at our reach now, that we can try to understand, two mysteries. One is dark matter and dark energy, and the other is antimatter. These things we can already start working now. The dark matter, after finding the Higgs, the next big question is, what is dark matter? I spoke about this last time, and I will probably dedicate a whole new session to discussing this. And this is a very interesting one, and I would invite everyone to be on that one, because dark matter is probably the source of most of the conspiracy theories that there are. Funny enough, people look at dark matter and they think that's the black beast because of the word dark, not ignoring the fact that dark matter is called dark matter only because we cannot see what it is. It's invisible. And it's invisible to our instruments, so we call it dark, but it doesn't mean dark as in evil. That's what I said last time. Whereas antimatter, I don't know if any of you read Dan Brown's book, The Angels and Demons, which started at CERN with somebody coming and stealing a bottle of antimatter in order to blow up the Vatican. Now, the thing is, it's very interesting, because antimatter is potentially the most explosive material that you could imagine. A few milligrams of that could blow up probably a whole city, or a few grams. If we were able ever to synthesize a few grams of antimatter, could blow up the whole planet, but luckily it's so difficult to make. We can make it. We have a factory at CERN of antimatter, and I'm not afraid of saying this, because we're making it so we can study it. However, antimatter at the quantities that we're making it doesn't even have the strength to blow up a mosquito, because we're making particles, few thousand particles, which is, or rather atoms of antimatter, atoms of anti-hydrogen. I will discuss the antimatter in another thing, but like I said, it's better that we leave each of these chapters of physics for a whole hour, because I have to start from the beginning and explain what an atom is, what an anti-atom is, before we can actually understand what I'm talking about, antimatter. Mm-hmm. This is because I don't like taking words and throwing them there, and then you start thinking, oh my God, what is antimatter? It's like something dark and evil. No, it's not evil. It's something that kills you, actually. It's something that you have in your body when you take an MRI, or when you take a PET scan. More like PET scan is a brain scan, with a PET machine, the positron emission tomography. You have antimatter in you. We have it everywhere. And antimatter doesn't exist in nature, but you can have it inside you in order, for instance, to look at your brain and to study and cure your brain diseases.
This might be another one you save either part of that episode or another one, but what are your thoughts on tachyons, and are CERN doing any experiments to look for evidence of their existence?
Now, if I don't remember well...
we seem to have lost you. Give it a couple of seconds. Okay, that's strange.
Hello?
Okay. Oh,
sorry, I've lost the line. I don't know what happened. Maybe the dog tripped on the cable that I connected on the router. Trying to go through cabled internet to be faster. But now I'm on the Wi-Fi, so I'm not as good as before. However, yeah, tachyons. So again, I'm not a physicist, but if I remember well, tachyons are these famous particles that go faster than the speed of light. Now, it's against the theory of general relativity, so it's probably not, let's say, something that CERN is looking for. because we are just trying to prove the standard model and general relativity, and our observation is strictly linked to quantum physics. Now, however, I know that in the theory group, that we have a theory department in CERN of theoreticians who are looking at exotic possible particles as well as string theory. String theory is another kind of theory that is parallel and does not match, let's say, quantum physics, or is even incompatible with quantum physics. But all these different exotic theories are being looked at, but experimentally, these are things that we cannot test, we cannot work on, because our machines are conceived to work according to the standard model and to quantum physics. And these things are outside quantum, like I said, relativity, and so they cannot be seen by our machines.
Okay. I'm going to put this on screen because I don't know whether that's meant to be collide or whether that is OLIDE. But can you OLIDE quarks? Which is straight over my. Can you? I don't know whether that should be collide or whether that is OLIDE quarks. It's on the screen.
Can you collide quarks? Well, yes.
I don't know. It's going over my head completely. So.
I don't know what the question. I don't know. I probably should scroll backwards. But like I said, I wouldn't want to talk about quantum physics or physics at all today, because today was more like the benefits of CERN and the what CERN does for us. However, we will have a chance to talk about physics. Now, can you collide quarks? You cannot separate quarks. A quark is something that is inside another particle. A quark, the top, the bottom quark, you have different kinds of quarks, the top, the bottom, the charm, let's not go into the standard model and explain all these things. However, a quark is something that is tightly tangled inside a proton or a nucleus or a neutron, and you cannot detach it. Now, there is an experiment who is looking, and it's Alice, and into what was the universe in its early phase. That means when before that even particles were formed, were there unconfined quarks? That means were there quarks that were just floating around the air by themselves? I say air, but there was no air. About space, time. Were there single unconfined quarks that by themselves or not? So this is something that it is hypothesized. However, we have not yet have a confirmation scientifically that these things can exist. They certainly don't exist today in our universe as the universe is today. So we can collide them because we can separate them from the nucleus. But we can collide nuclei, and we do that. We collide lead nuclei occasionally in the LHC. We do for I think a couple of weeks, a year. We collide lead nuclei. These are very heavy particles that create gigantic explosions. And this is all for the benefit of Alice, the experiment who is looking in the primordial particle soup that is the primordial state of the universe. So they actually, if there is somebody who can actually see these unconfined quarks, it's them during this particular time when we collide heavy nuclei.
Okay. Is there not an organic computer where 1 or 0 is replaced with dead or alive?
Yeah, well, that is my fear. The minute we'll have organic computers coupled with today's computing power, we will have a reason to exist anymore. Let me tell you something about my university year. We used to study in computer science in university. We study a subject called the theory of computing. And there were theorems, and there was a theorem by Gödel, who was, I think it was 1950s or something, or 60s anyway, and who proved that the domain of computable is limited. And that's why a computer can never really think. They cannot think because thought cannot, as in perception, as in understanding, is something that can only be emulated. It can be simulated by a computer in artificial intelligence, for instance, but a computer cannot think autonomously and start creating stuff autonomously, unless you program it to do it randomly, but not really with a criterion like a human brain does. But the day you will put bioelements, brain cells inside a computer, then you know, Gödel's restriction will fall. And yes, a computer will become the most powerful brain that you would have never imagined. And I believe that that's the end of mankind. I must align with Elon Musk and the others who have warned us about the dangers of AI. This is the kind of danger. It's not the AI of today that is completely computer bound, but it's what AI could become in the future, and not so far future. So Robocop and Terminator become real. Yeah, well.
So you just answered what I was going to ask as an add-on. Whether
right,
you
well, yeah. I just see the last one, so sometime I do.
Not actually in there at the moment, but yeah. But yeah, I was going to go on to whether you had concerns about the future of AI and what whether it becomes a threat to humanity.
I understand why they you know, they have. I mean, the guy, OpenAI CEO, the guy who made ChatGPT, who warns us against his own. It's not against his own. What they're saying is that we need regulations. However, you know what the problem is. Yes, you can do a regulation in the US that will be adopted by the UK, by Europe, by Italy, but what happens in some weird country, North Korea or wherever, you know, they don't stick to any regulations. What happens in some country where anybody can do anything they want, you know? So that's the problem, that regulations are still linked to a territorial, you know, to countries. And but there's always one who can be outside these countries and come with the scary beast.
There's always one that could be within a country, because how do you can enforce by punishing after, but once the genie's out the bottle, as they say,
yeah, the genie's
you
out the
can't
bottle.
put it back in.
I mean, we've seen what happened with the nuclear power, you know, nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons. How they tried to stop North Korea, tried to stop Iran. You know, did they work? No, it didn't work. So they can stop some rogue country who starts doing weird AI applications that could potentially control the world. And they will try. They will try, I tell you.
Well, okay. What kind of safety measures do they have when and if they accomplish collisions and things go wrong? I don't know the specifics of things going wrong.
Let me give you a side here. A collision, it's something that happens within a detector chamber. And these collisions are two protons that collide with each other. You know how small a proton is. And they accelerate two bunches of protons. These two bunches contain about 13 billion protons each. And they go opposite direction in this collider. So I'm showing you like that, you know, that they go bunch, they go until they collide. Now, when they collide, there's just one proton in 13 billion, because the probability of collision is so small, because there's the space between these 13 billion protons that are on the tip of a needle. You know, that's how they fit. How thin, let's say, it's just some micro, you know, microns, 2-3 microns is the bunch. And even though they are so far away from each other that they just pass always like that, you know, and they don't collide. But when there is a collision, and then this collision gets analyzed, etc., the energy of this collision is lower than the energy of a flying mosquito. That means it's like if you were to take two electric wires connected to a battery of a car, and you make a spark. That spark It's trillions of times more energy than the collision of the protons. So what can go wrong? It's nothing. It's ridiculously small. For comparison, I always mention cosmic rays because, we are under a constant shower of cosmic rays, which come from the sun, comes from the galaxy, and the Earth is constantly bombarded. As I speak here, in my square meter around me, there are something like 100 cosmic rays a second that pass through me. Each of these cosmic rays is about 10,000 times the energy of our proton collisions. Do we die? No, we don't. Yes, we get certain radioactivity at the end of the year. We accumulate radioactivity, but we were born on this planet and we can cope with it. And, these cosmic rays, like I said, they have an energy. They are so much more radioactive than our little protons. They're thousands of times more radioactive, and we have hundreds a second through us.
Okay. Since this one's going to keep coming up and up and up, because I know our audience and I know the range of our audience, let me just put you another way. If you were doing the risk assessment, doing the RAMs on the on CERN's experiments as a whole, what would be the highest risk before you put into your obvious safety protections or whatever? What would be the highest risk? Like I say,
there are absolutely no risks for, let's say, for the outside. Like I said before, the risks that you have inside CERN are more likely what happens within the lab. Like in every industrial environment, there is high tension, so you have to be careful not to walk, or touch something that you can get electrocuted. There are transformers with very high tension. There is cryogenics, which means there is gases like helium or nitrogen that are at very low temperature, and if there was a leak, you could inhale and you could freeze from the inside. There is what else? Well, that's radiation, of course. That's why you must not go. There is a lot of checking that no humans, no living beings are inside the LHC when they start being, because you got radioactive. So there are typical industrial dangers within CERN, but there is nothing absolutely that can go outside. There is a reason why the LHC is at 100 meters underground. Why did they dig a tunnel 100 meters underground? Because to make sure, or rather, to keep the people in Geneva quite calm, because they were the first. They say, "Oh, we live here. We live just here above you. So what is the chance that, I don't know, we get radiation and we get irradiated?" So it takes 3 meters of concrete to stop any particle radiation that can come from these accelerators. So just to make sure, we put 100 meters, to say, 3 meters are enough, but we say, let's go 100 down. And therefore, you can stay very, very, feel very safe in the whole region around Geneva. And it's a beautiful region made of mountains and meadows that are in the CERN surface. On the surface, there are deers, there are woods. CERN is under woods, and all these woods are populated, are full of deers, etc. And there are, of course, radiation station meters that measure never anything. They measure zero. They measure just the cosmic ray radiation that comes from the sun and from the sky, but they don't measure anything that comes from underground. So there's no, a nuclear power plant is a danger. A nuclear, as we've seen with Chernobyl, with Fukushima, a nuclear power plant is because they are working with power, with a huge energy. Their job is to produce a huge amount of nuclear energy in order to satisfy the demand of towns and the country. But the quantity is nothing. A nuclear power plant produces something like, imagine these megawatt projectors that you see in stadiums. That is the energy a nuclear power plant produces. CERN is a Christmas tree light. What is the danger of a Christmas tree light exploding and destroying the world? That's the energy we produce.
Okay. I won't keep you too much longer, but got just 2 more questions, if that's okay. I don't know what this one's going on about at all, so hopefully you will. What is the nanometer limit on a silicon die? And do you think when can go smaller with another substrate? Also, what happens using quartz as a storage medium? Does that make any sense to you?
No, this is way out of my field. Sorry, this is deep computing technology hardware, and I must say that I don't know. I've left the hardware technology at the university, and so I cannot tell you much about that. But what I know is that we have hit basically we've got to the speed of light. So we've got, like when you mentioned nanometer on the level of silicon scale, you probably refer to CPU power. And there is a limit that we have hit, and we cannot go any further with that technology, with that kind of silicon, because we cannot go faster than the speed of light, and the waveform, the frequency that the CPU basically is running at has kind of reached the limit. So now, rather than trying to get faster CPUs, we're trying rather to go and put more parallel computing. That's why we went into the grid, into the cloud, many computers together rather than one that gets faster and faster, because we have kind of reached the limit. Unless we manage to get into quantum, and that answers also the part of the core, the quantum memory and quantum computing, where we jump immediately 10 million times smaller and faster. But quantum computing is still not there. There's a lot of research on it, but I can't tell you when this will be available. Probably not for 20 years.
Okay, and just the final one, which I'm going to take the advantage of being able to pick the questions to put the last one on my own. When going back to the first show we did with yourself, I thought you'd frozen again for a minute. Sorry. You were talking about, you were talking generally that's how open it is, and other people can, or universities and whatever, can suggest experiments and come with an experiment. Who would decide whether something was worth pursuing, and how much who would have that knowledge? Could somebody just literally come with an equation without the people there knowing what that equation is? Or would somebody have the oversight of that?
Absolutely. CERN has always praised particularly young people that come with bright ideas. And one example is the web. Tim Berners-Lee was only like 30 years old when he came across that. So the point is that if like I mentioned students. CERN has a program for students, of university students who are doing their master degree. Don't have to be a PhD. You'll be a third year of master, second, third year. Basically third year of university. Depends. And even if you take an MBA, you can already go as a student to CERN. So you apply. There is a summer student called Lucas Summer Students, or technical students. Summer students are the easiest to get. They have every year 350 students that come from all over the member states, and in fact, eventually all over the world, because they have a program also for a few students that can come from developing countries who are not, like Rwanda, Kenya, Mauritius. I sent a student to CERN from Mauritius, who are not member states, but they gave a chance to everyone. So if you go there, you can talk to the top. If you're a student, there's no big hierarchy, etc. You can just meet in the CERN restaurant, in the cafeteria. There are 3 restaurants. Have over a beer, and you can meet a top scientist, a Nobel Prize winner, and you say, "Look, I've got this idea," and he will listen to you. He will take you seriously. And of course, if your idea doesn't stand, he probably will tell you why it doesn't stand. Or otherwise, if it does stand, and it did happen in the past, then they will put all their energies in approving research in the field you propose.
But assuming they would need to understand and know exactly what you were doing before agreeing that.
But of course, if you dare, is that you have a background. You cannot be, I don't know, an electrician and then get the service and say, "Oh, I found."
I guess what I'm saying, if somebody came in with something that was that the actual people they were talking to didn't understand, they assumedly wouldn't pass that for testing without that knowledge and understanding themselves.
Look, it's always possible that you have somebody above you, or I mean, somebody, you know, in your hierarchy, but then you can always talk to someone else. And CERN is very open about that, you know. Like I said, all the you know where most of the physics discussion happens is really over a beer in the cafeteria. You know, there's these big restaurants in the open air, and well, in summer, of course, and you know, where you can just grab a beer, grab a coffee, and then call this person. You know, you can just call anybody. You can call the head of the theory department and say, listen, my name is Silvano. I just figured out a way that maybe we can, you know, bypass the quantum confinement, you know, or et cetera, you know. And the guy said, okay, fine, let's grab a beer and see you later, you know, at 6 o'clock, I'll see you in the cafe. So then you talk to them. And if the guy does not quite see it, you still can talk to someone else. There are 7,000 physicists at CERN, so you have a choice.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm sure there's a lot there for people to think on. A few people saying I'm definitely rewatching this already, so I think people want a couple of views to take in what you said. But
yeah. Listen, yeah, what I can do is I will maybe try to go through some of the questions, and maybe next time I can try and spare, like, you know, a few minutes in answering, because I said that I see a lot of questions passing, but there's no time to pick them up all. Yeah. So we'll I'll go through them offline, and then I will start by answering those that I believe make more sense. And about, you know, I've also seen some about this ritualistic things and everything, and the conspiracy theory. We discussed this extensively for the last two times.
I've not bothered pulling any of those. I found I got to the bottom of some of that. There seems to have been an opening to a tunnel in Switzerland. That
was the Gotthard tunnel, nothing to do with CERN. It was a railway. It's like,
I know, but I've tracked down where it comes from, if you see what I mean, where the
Well, it's like, where are you based? I mean, I don't know. Well, I don't know, in Manchester or whatever. Yeah. Well, and when they made the Channel Tunnel, and suppose that some people made some stupid choreography because they hired a stupid dance team who came up with something totally idiotic that they wanted to do, God knows why. But anyway, it's not their fault that the guys who made the Channel Tunnel. Is the dancer that they hired to do the show. Yeah. That is a bit lunatic. But okay, and suppose they did that. And then all of a sudden they come and say, oh, you are in Manchester, so you must be doing devil worship. You know what I mean? Nothing to do. If you're in Manchester, if you're in London or Liverpool, have nothing to do with the Channel Tunnel. We are in Switzerland, right? These people were in Switzerland.
You're in the same country, so you're immediately.
Same country, but we didn't even know about this. I learned this now by doing this stuff. I never heard about this thing that happened, but I laughed.
I had to look at what people were going on about, and that's the first thing that I found, that it's like you say, a railway tunnel somewhere, but it's a very obscure opening to a railway tunnel. People aren't wrong on that.
Know it is. This guy must be the choreographer. I've read, after that, I've looked into it, you know, and I actually asked my friends who are, because my wife is to do contemporary dancing in Geneva, you know, and we know the kind of people there, you know, they are all full of themselves, and they think they are, you know, the best dancers in the world, and everything. So when they must have got this contract, and then they must have done this scenario, and the people who hired them to do this obviously had no idea what they were going to do. They just trusted them. They came with this devil thing, the goat. That was like ridiculous. I mean, okay, what can I say? I know Switzerland is a weird country. You know, there are a lot of sects every now and then. You get people who commit mass suicides up in the mountains. Well, what can we do? I mean, you know, we're not even Swiss. I mean, we're international in CERN. There is a very, very small amount of Swiss people. So we just happen to be there. And in fact, CERN is not 100% in Switzerland. It's half in Switzerland, half in France. You know, we're on the border just to show that we're international. We don't depend on one country.
No. Okay. And like I say, unless there's anything else you particularly want to say to sign off, then we will call it a day. And
okay, we're calling it a day, and we can just already decide what we're going to talk next time, so people know about it. I think that as everybody's talking about dark matter, we will tackle that also, because it's the next thing that CERN is looking for, seriously. So we will do one session on dark matter, eventually one on antimatter. The one on dark matter is interesting, and I will cover very delicately, because this is like walking on eggshells, one aspect of this dark energy in particular that was hypothesized by Penrose, and that's the possibility that the global consciousness may exist within the sphere of dark energy. And when I say global consciousness, we're talking about a connection to our soul. So here we're going into, I wouldn't say something religious. No, there's no religion there to talk. It's more like a work that has been done by theoretical physicists, eminent theoretical physicists, which get you to see a, let's say, physics from a different kind, from a different angle, and where they could find a connection between what we call a soul, what we call our consciousness, and something that's up there in the universe. So that is interesting. I'm sure that most people will find that interesting.
Okay. So,
well, thank you very much, everybody. And I hope that, you of course are free to do your own research. Google is there for that reason. You can look at the CERN site, but there's many millions of physics sites. So any question you have about this dark matter, antimatter, you go and explore it. What I say always, that most unfounded conspiracy theories come from having taken a word out of context and imagining something behind it, that there's something in dark. But if you look at the reality of things and you find all the reality on the web today, then you have a totally different approach to it. Then you understand really what that is, and in most cases is much less dark and sordid than your conspiracy theories want to believe.
Oddly enough, I've never seen one related to dark matter. Funny enough, that's not one I've ever come across, to be honest. So, but I'm sure they're out there. Sure. But anyway, we will leave it there for today. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you soon.
Sure.
Good night.
I'll see you next Monday. Take care.